Hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside Furman Athletics. I am Dan Scott. You guys really don't need an introduction for this guy, Bob Richey, the I won't say frazzled basketball coach here at Furman. Maybe a little tired, but as enthusiastic, I think, as I've seen him in a long time. And that's saying something, Bob, because you're always an enthusiastic guy.
Yeah, we've had a productive spring, and got a lot of things finalized. Roster, staff, and been able to spend a lot of time with our stakeholders the last 3 days, and feel like we're at a good place to finally. We haven't really stopped since season at all, and finally to take a little bit of a break here soon before we get to June 1. Everybody gets back, but before that, we're going to go celebrate Matt Rafferty's wedding on Saturday in Dallas. So Jessica and I fly out there tomorrow, and going to be a part of the rehearsal dinner tomorrow night. And Andrew Brown and Daniel Fowler and Jeff Beans and a lot of other players are going to be out there. So should be a great celebration. And then come back Sunday and hopefully get a little break before we kick this thing off this summer.
How would you describe the last, let's say, 2.5 weeks of your life?
It really, Dan, backs up almost to right after the season. I mean, it was just, you get done and, used to, you'd get done with season and everybody kind of takes a break and maybe for a week and then you start your player meetings and then, you kind of already know what you're going to have to do recruiting-wise and, you have your ducks in a row there. And, man, this year, you get done with season and now in the last couple of years, you really got to get right to player meetings, and you got to figure out what's going on with your roster. And some things we already knew, and then some things we had to work through. And so then you find out, hey, here's what we got to go do. And so we got 5 commitments in 5 weeks, which I mean I've recruited and been around recruiting for I guess 18 years now, and never seen anything like that. In terms of how we went about it and the speed of it and the changing of it. And I mean it just felt like. With that portal, I mean, it felt like you're watching like a Wall Street movie, like you're just day to day, minute to minute. I mean, things are changing. This guy gets in, this guy, like one day, you can't get a hold of a guy. Next day he wants to visit. And, usually, typically in recruiting, you're structuring visits off of weekends. And so you're going Friday to Sunday, and you got another guy coming in Friday to Sunday. This was, you bring in a guy whenever you can get him in there. And it could be Friday to Sunday, and then as he's flying out, somebody's flying in, and they're going Sunday to Tuesday, and then maybe you get 1 day break, and then now you're back Thursday. I mean, it was really really fast, but I'll tell you this, it was awesome to see the energy around recruits to Furman right now, and this has been a program that's been on the rise and has had sustainable success, for 7-8 years now, and I was telling somebody yesterday, it was neat to see, with the energy of the arena, with the energy of Greenville, the beautiful campus, the degree, the tournament success, the sustained winning that we've had. It really tracked well in the recruiting landscape right now, which was huge because this stuff happens really quick. And, typically you have, the way you recruit is you decide if you're going to offer somebody, and then you bring them to campus for the official visit. And then you try to close the deal. For us, really, with the spring of literally, the motto of build it back better, of getting our culture back, getting our humility right, getting our team chemistry better, making it about the mission and not about the self, and making sure that that's the focus of what we got to do going forward. We were super sensitive to anything that we felt like was going to be against that. And, it's kind of like when you get sick, your body builds antibodies, right? And next time it sees that coming, your body fights it off and can see it. And we were probably a little oversensitive to some of that, just to make sure that if nothing else, we get our culture back where it needs to be. And we were doing it the opposite. So we were recruiting, and we were bringing kids here to live with them for 2 days, basically, and to be around their whole support system and to get to know them. And then we were deciding, hey, is this a match on both ends? And so we did 8 official visits. There were 2 that we decided, that, hey, you know what, this, for whatever reason, we're not going to do this. And then there was 1 that we lost, and then we went 5 for 5 on the bat with the rest of them. So it's it was neat how it all happened, and we got some really really good players. We got 2 committed, and so we were 2 of 5 done, and we had one night out of 13 that we were free as a staff. Just happened to be Jessica and I's anniversary, and so we went out to Lake Huey real quick for the night. We had to be back Saturday at 3 for another visit to start. And so we literally went out there, woke up, had breakfast, we're sitting out on the dock talking, and I got a call from one of the recruits, and we missed out. We got beat on him, and we thought we had him, and he decided to go somewhere else. And I was sitting out there, and I was like, man, now it's like, okay, we got 3 more to get. We were bringing Mason to campus that day, and at that point going into the visit, the intel was College of Charleston had a little bit of a lead on us, and so you're kind of like, man, well, we need to get Mason. If we don't, then now all of a sudden, we're gonna. And lo and behold, Mason comes to campus. We have a great visit. His parents, everybody, we'd been able to spend a lot of time with him that week, and sure enough, Monday night, he calls me and commits. And actually, I take that back. It was Sunday night. Mm-hmm. He called me and committed on Sunday night. And it was a huge get for us. And so now we're 3 of 5. And then we go the next day on Monday to Wednesday, Tom House comes in. And he's down to Belmont, Liberty, Furman. We get the 3rd visit. And Wednesday, before I take him to the airport, we're at my house. And he commits to me in my house. And so I'm texting the staff. I'm like, hey, Tom just committed. So now we're 4 or 5. And then I'm taking Tom to the airport. We're picking Jalen Sullinger up from the airport. We're starting his visit Wednesday to Friday. And I told him, I was messing with him during the visit. I said, look, man, I've been recruiting all spring. No pressure, no guilt. Haven't seen my family a whole lot. But if we get this last commitment, my daughter plays volleyball in Tennessee, and I'm going to get to go see her play. I said, if not, I'm going to have to do another one of these visits. And he kind of started laughing, and that was on Thursday. So we get into the closing breakfast on Friday, and, I go through the whole spiel, and, we want you, and this and that and the third. And he looks at me and goes, hey, Coach, you can go to the volleyball games. And so we were done. And lo and behold, that was a huge get, to get Jalen right there. And so all 5 of them, Nick was the first to commit. And then we got Charles after that, who we're both excited. We're all excited about those 2, and then it was that 3 and 5 day stretch that we were able to really close the class out, and have what I feel like is an unbelievable recruiting class.
What did you learn about the whole transfer portal thing? Because in the previous couple of years, you've basically gone and got one person to fill a specific need, and this time you had to fill 5 spots. What did you learn about the portal process? Is there anything that you like about it? What did you learn that you didn't like? What was the whole process like?
So we signed more guys in the portal than we've signed in my whole tenure here in the portal. Right. Outside of this spring. We've taken 3 transfers before this year, and we just signed 4. It's everybody thinks I'm against the portal. I'm not against the portal. I'm against the transaction components of the business and losing the ability to really impact and influence and lead people. I just the last 3 days have been pretty neat. I've been spending a lot of time with our stakeholders, and I decided to do it downtown, and just for their sake, to be able to get to the meeting quicker and not have to drive all the way to campus. And so I did it at Foster Victor, and Paul got me set up there, and to have him as a former player and then see Andrew Brown walking around in there and doing all his meetings, it's just a reminder of like why we do what we do.
Right.
And then, one of the meetings is with Jeff Beans yesterday, and the success that he's having is incredible. And then we're all talking about flying out to Dallas and what we're going to do when we get out there. Like that, I don't want to lose that. Like this has gotten so transactional. What can I get out of this? How much am I getting paid? Am I the main guy? This has always been about, when we started this and when we built this, it was about being part of something bigger than you that will last longer than you. And, the challenge to the staff was we have to adapt. that's just where the game is right now. You know, we can sit around and talk how we don't like it. You know, that's kind of irrelevant. How do we not lose identity in this? And to be honest with you, we have to double down on this. And, you know, for me as a leader, you know, when you have, you know, you can sit back and say, hey, 17-win season, you look at the historical context of Furman, 17 wins isn't all that bad. But for us, it's the worst year of our tenure. You know, I've had to remind people of that, you know, like, hey, look, this is the only team that we had that didn't finish in the top 100, like the only one. And so things had to be fixed. Things had to be changed. And, you know, for us, it was about we have to get back to our roots and we have to get back to how we built this whole thing. And so being able to navigate the portal, the portal is overwhelming in terms of having to filter it, right? Because you get on there and there's 50 new names every day, right? Minimum. And so how do you do evaluations on all that? How do you figure out, you know, which ones you're going to pursue, which ones you're going to call? There's only so much time in a day. And so we got into the analytic component. We had a formula and we had a database, and, you know, we had something that was kind of spitting out, hey, these are fits, these aren't fits from a basketball standpoint. And then there were some guys that obviously we knew in the recruiting process, like a Tom House that visited here in high school. You know, Jalen Solinger, Rhett Lister, who we just brought back on staff, was at Kent State as a GA this year. Tyrese Huey was his high school teammate. So you got an all-MAC league player, you know, that he knows people here, right? Nick Anderson, we recruited in high school some. It was during that COVID year, so we recruited him some. So a lot of times some of those previous relationships are huge. Charles was really the only one that we took out of the portal that we didn't know, but we quickly realized that he was us. And so, you know, you filter the data, the basketball stuff, then you got to figure out, okay, the support system, what are they looking for? You know, what do they want to get out of this? And the line we use, Dan, what I told the staff is we have to make 100% sure that it's impossible for them to choose Furman for the wrong reason.
Right.
Like that's and sometimes that's a different way of thinking. Like, hey, we want them to come here for the right reason, for sure. I don't want there to be any ambiguity and any lack of clarity. This is exactly what you're coming to, okay? And we're going to move the ball, all right? You look at our assists this year, right? In our 17 wins, 19 assists, 16 losses, 13 assists. It's a massive change, right? We'll slide over to three-point percentage, okay? 17 wins, 35% from three, okay? Not great, not bad, okay? Over 33.3, which is kind of your line. 16 losses, 29% from three, really bad. Okay, well, 13 assists, 29% from three, ball movement, right? Lack of cutting. We had to get guys that really didn't want to fight the system, you know, didn't want to, you know, wanted to embrace it, wanted to enjoy it, wanted to look at it and say, I want to play with my teammates. And that's what we've always done, right? The lack of cutting this year, the lack of ball movement. We had to find guys that we said, hey, look, if you come and play here, this is how we're going to play. Okay, this is what's had 6 top 100 teams, and this is what this has looked like. If you don't, that's okay, right? Like if you want to go and you want to play more ISO ball and you want it to be about you, and that's okay, but that's not going to be here. We're going to play as a group, and we're going to play connected. Here's the academic piece, right? Here's the further the man. Like we're going to enhance this, and we're going to push this. And really what we tried to say was, hey, in all this movement, and it's all transactional, how much am I getting paid? What am I going to be doing? How many shots am I going to be getting? Like, we wanted to showcase a difference, and we wanted to say, hey, if you come here, we're going to still try to create a transformational model that impacts people, that allows them to grow into men. The window's just going to be shorter. Right? The time. And we didn't want to fill it with 5 one-year guys. You know, we were intentional with that, you know, we just wanted to take 2 one-year guys out of the 5 spots. And so that way, at least, you know, we get 2 years, and, you know, with Mason, obviously, we're going to get 4. But it's a deal where, like, you look at a guy like Conley Garrison. Conley was only here 1 year, but I think if you interviewed Conley right now, he would tell you that this place had a big impact on him in 1 year. Conley was a perfect fit for who we are and what we do, right? And he aligned with the values of our program. So we were just hypersensitive to that. You know, we wanted, you know, not low maintenance. We wanted no maintenance. And we wanted guys that wanted to be here for the right reasons. And really, to be honest with you, Dan, like just, you know, we also gave our players some say, you know, in terms of the visits. And, we wanted them to like one another. We wanted to, hey, do they fit culturally? When they're hanging out with you guys, what do y'all see? What do you feel? Are they us? And I think that the 8 here that are returning, I was really, really proud of how they went about the spring and how close they got. And sometimes that's what hard times do to you, right? They draw you closer, and I wanted them to make sure that they had some say in this, and that we were doing everything we could to continue to build the culture back correctly.
Visiting with Bob Richey on this edition of Inside Furman Athletics, and the way my mind works, the only downside I can see to getting Charles Johnson in here is that you weren't able to recruit him coming out of high school and be able to plan a recruiting trip to Sydney, Australia, right? You didn't get to go all the way there to see him play and build that in. But just looking at the 4 experienced guys plus Mason, who's coming in, as you said, they all have to fit into your system, but they all seem to have their own unique skill set as well.
They do. I mean, basically what we did, doesn't take a genius to figure out if you have 5 scholarships open, what do? You go sign one at each spot, right? And so that's kind of what we did. And, we saw Charles on film, and he was out in California, and I told Chad, I'm like, how are we going to get somebody from California all the way over here? And, he's going to have other options. He put up big numbers in the Division II school, and, he's 6'11", he's skilled, and, Chad's point, and he ended up being right. He said, look, he's from Australia. Like, at the end of the day, I don't think he's going to care, like, where he ends up in the United States. Like, he's from Australia. And so sure enough, we got him on campus. And, Charles is man, he just got a warm heart. He's just a great person. And we got him here on campus that first day. And we went to dinner. And we were all together. And we were sitting at dinner. And I'll never forget this. There was a table right to the side of us, and the guy dropped something on the floor. And Charles looked at it and picked it up and grabbed it, and he said, hey, you dropped this. I want to make sure, And I was like, man, that's unique, Well, then after dinner, the guy literally gives me, he's huge. When he says 6'11", like he's really 6'11". Mm-hmm. He puts his arm around me. He says, thanks, coach. And I thought, this guy appreciates, what we're providing for him. You can tell just how much he cares about people, and the whole visit, it was just, you could see just an unbelievable person. Mm-hmm. And but I tell you what, he's only played basketball for 5 years, and he's he's a cricket player early, and he's gotten to a point where I think with a developmental summer, he's going to make another huge jump. But he's got touch. He can shoot it from the outside. He can play the 5. He can play the 4 a little bit as well. We're definitely going to be double big in a lot of times this season, and he just fits. He came and played with our guys as well on that visit, and just the guys really just felt he fit in very well from a basketball standpoint, and I think that's what we said in the recruiting process. We wanted a 5 that could really stretch the edges, that we could, hit a shot from the outside and really be able to do some things that we needed him to do in a 5-out setting. And we were able to get that with him. I tell you what, he's also tough. He really rebounds. And, I think he's going to be somebody that makes an immediate impact for us.
I'm just sitting here in my mind trying to picture a 6'11" cricket player.
Really crazy.
It really is. Not only did you have 5 spots on your roster to fill, but as it turned out, you had 4 spots on your coaching staff.
We did.
To fill.
We did. We had, we had basically, now the NCAA basically gives you 5 assistants, 3 of them at which can be recruiting on the road and coach on the floor, and then an additional 2 more that can just coach on the floor, but they can't go out on the road. They can recruit on campus. So, for our 6 positions internally, really 7, including the strength coach, you got the 3 assistants that can recruit and coach. You got the extra 2 assistants that can coach, and then you basically have your for us, Darren, that supports our stakeholders and does a lot of things externally for us, logistical work, keeps us organized, chief of staff type role, and then you have your strength coach. And so really for us, there was one adjustment on staff, and then there was 3 others really that also got opportunities. And so our assistant 3, 4, and 5 spots were open, as well as our strength coach spot. And so Chad and Jeremy still here, which is huge for us. I mean, both of those guys are of huge value and just phenomenal coaches. Both Chad's already been a successful head coach. Jeremy was very, very close to an opportunity of being a head coach, and that could have easily have happened the last 2 years. But fortunately, we were able to hold on to both of those two. We just hired our third assistant basically on Monday night, so that was the 9 of 9 in terms of just the calculator in my mind of getting to complete. And we're bringing in Kyle Marshall from South Dakota State, and I'm really excited about it. He played for Brad Stevens at Butler and was a part of that second team that made it to the national championship game. And he's been in a few different places. He's worked his way up, but these last 3 years he's been in South Dakota. And I got to get to know Eric Henderson a little bit. Just through having conversations, the head coach there at South Dakota State, through this process. And one of the things that really stood out to me was just the values and the principles of how we both operate are very similar. And even turning on some film and seeing how they play, it's not exactly the same, but the values are the same. And with his experience at Butler, being at South Dakota State, being in the NCAA tournament 2 of the last 3 years, not to mention the bonus of he's 6'6" and 230 pounds, and had just incredible presence on the visit. And we got to get more production from our post players. That's not a shock or surprise to anybody on here. And we have unbelievable upside in that group, right? We got to get Garrett playing better. Garrett would be the first to admit that. He had a drop down in a lot of statistical categories, and Garrett has a ton of potential. And I want to see not only a better year, I want to see his best year. And you look at a guy like Cooper Bowser. He had some big time flashes at ETSU, at Citadel, was huge in helping us win those games. He needs to continue to be developed, and he's got a chance to be a pro, and we've got to continue to pour into him. Tyrese, this will be his first offseason in 3 years. Basically, he's had hip surgeries the last 2, and so it's going to be a massive offseason for him. And then you've also basically at the end of the day, you've got Charles coming in here, who we talked about, who we feel like we got to get him acclimated quickly, and you got Davis Molnar, that hard-nosed, tough player, going to give you everything he's got. Is continuing to work on his outside shot, continuing to be better defensively on the perimeter. But he's a worker, and he's a great player, great person here. So you got a stable of 5 post players that have a ton of potential. And so I was really intentional of not only I basically added 2 coaches to help with that group, and we'll talk about Kip here in a little bit. But Kyle's going to really be able to take specifically our 4s and our 5s and be able to just pour into them, right? I mean, the carryover from what he learned at Butler, what they've learned at South Dakota State, and really being able to recruit the same type of skill player person, I think it's going to be a very easy transition. He's from Florida. It's a state that I feel like we need to continue to get into as much as we can. And so I'm actually leaving here this podcast to go pick him up from the airport. And, beautiful family, and look forward to, didn't get to meet the 2 kids, but I got to meet Olivia's wife, and they couldn't be, they're pumped to get here.
The 2 other spots before we talk about the strength coach, just a couple of thoughts about them, and I think you just earlier let the cat out of the bag. One of them's a familiar name, right?
That is correct. So in the assistant 4 position, Jake Delaney had an opportunity to go to Gardner-Webb and be associate head coach there. So he jumped from spot 4 to spot 1 basically, and that comes with a pretty significant pay bump. So we were excited for Jake, and thought that was an awesome opportunity for him. He came from Gardner-Webb, and then Tim got the Western Carolina job, and they hired from within there, and hired Jeremy Luther as a head coach. Was a great decision on their part, and Jeremy brought Jake back in the similar role that Jeremy was there. So we love Jake. He did a great job in the year that he had here, but we brought in Kip Owens, and it's funny. Give you a little story here on Kip. So Kip's 6'9", big old boy from Memphis, Tennessee, and so when I started as an assistant, I used to watch Alabama Huntsville games, Division II team in Huntsville, and they won 20 games every year, and did it through academic place, and just kept winning. And I heard about Lenny Acuff, and I was like, I want to look into this. Well, I got obsessed with it. It was one of those things in the off season. I'd just plow through a whole season. And they had this 5-man that just was, I mean, he was a surgeon out there. I mean, it was a lot like a Matt Rafferty. I mean, he just picked people apart. And, after a while, you know the names of the guys. You're watching them, you're cutting them, and hey, that's Kip Owens. Well, fast forward to 2017, I got the job here. And my first call was to Chad Warner, and who's now on staff. My first call was to Chad Warner. I said, hey, I want you to come be a part of this. And he was at Valparaiso at the time. And he had just gotten offered the Flagler head job. And he said, Bob, look, I think I want to stay. I want to go back to being a head coach. I'm going to give this a shot. He said, but it could be fun because we're going to play really similar, and we could talk through this, and first time head coach for you, and I could be a mentor and support system for you. And so he goes to Flagler, and we both decided, hey, we're going to play similar. Okay. Well, I'd basically learned the offense of just studying 4 or 5 years, and Lenny was nice enough to come to Greenville for a couple of days when I got the job, and so, but Chad was, had been in the league, but he wanted somebody on staff that really knew it, so he hires Kip on staff at Flagler. So Kip is there, basically in the second assistant spot there. Chad comes to Furman. The first assistant gets the head job. Kip moves up to associate head coach there and has been there the last 2 years. And I've had my eye on him for a while because, as we know, the 5-man in our system is unique. And so I just felt like, like at some point I want to bring him back. And or not bring him back. I want to bring him to staff here, and I've watched him I've watched this guy since like 2014, and so long story short, we brought him up on the interview, and his wife Lizzie came with him, and we did the whole tour campus and sit down and ask all the hard questions, and we went over to my house, and it was really just to have some dessert and sit around. The 4 of us talk, Jessica and myself, and Kip and Lizzie, and all of a sudden we look up and it's 11:30 at night, and it was just the alignment of not just the basketball piece but the personal piece and what he stood for as a person. I basically, it was one of those decisions where I was going to kind of let it drag out for a little bit, and it got close to midnight, and I just looked at both of them and I said, look, let's figure out a way to get this done. And we were back on my screen porch, and they were all elated, and she's pregnant with her first, and they're just great people. And he's already here. Been working like crazy to get transitioned and back and forth from Florida. But those two, right, like the ability of Kip and Kyle to be able to really pour into our 4s and 5s, I think is going to be unique. And I think it's going to be really fun to see those two collaborate and work together on that. The 5th spot, Damon, just so happened that the head coach at FAU ended up going with was an assistant at Baylor, which is where Damon came from, and Damon was his GA when he was at Baylor. And so he got an opportunity to basically double his income and go to FAU. And so we were happy for him on that. And so at that point, we were sitting in the office one day, and my mindset, Dan, it's funny how I ended up doing a reverse order. Sometimes you have a plan, it just doesn't. I thought, man, we're gonna hire top down on this. I'm gonna figure out who's the 4th, who's the 3rd assistant, and then who's the 4th and who's the 5th, and we'll go in that order. Ended up going reverse order, and and we were sitting in the office one day, and basically I hadn't hired anybody at this point, and it was like a Wednesday or I think it was a Thursday actually, and we had all this recruiting going on, right? My mom was like, hey, let's get the roster right, then we'll get the staff right. And my staff's kind of looking at me, and I can just feel it, and they kind of, you just see it after a while. You can sense it. They want to tell me something, and they're like, they basically just teamed up on me, and they're like, look, man, like, we need to get Rhett here yesterday, and he's through and through Furman. We need help. We got all these recruits going on. He will walk from Kent State to Furman right now, and we need to get him here as fast as we can. And, I'm a process-oriented guy, so I wanted to go through the whole process, and after a while, I thought, you know what, these guys are probably right. And we were sitting in the office, and I pulled out my phone. I FaceTimed him right in the staff room, and he picked up. He was on a golf course, and I said, hey, man, you want to come home? And he almost started crying, and he said, yeah, I do. And I said, how fast can you get here? And he said, I can leave right now. And I said, Rhett, don't leave right now. I said, you got to finish up well there. But we kept it a secret, and basically that was the Thursday before they did the groundbreaking here on Saturday. So on Saturday, we had the team in the meeting room before the groundbreaking, and we said, hey, let's just all meet in the meeting room before we walk over to the groundbreaking. And as we were getting ready to walk out there, I popped up a slide and just talked about the culture of what we stand for and what we're about. And, I said, we've decided to bring somebody back that bleeds this through and through. And Rhett walked in the room, and the whole place went crazy. And, it was pretty neat. I mean, they really vouched for him hard. The players did. I mean, the players, from Garrett to Ben to a lot of them, like, hey, we got to bring Rhett back. So we got Rhett here. And so those are the 3 new additions on staff. Really, really excited about it. But, Chad, Jeremy, Darren still here. And we're thankful for all 3 of those. They all 3 have done a phenomenal job. And then we got some fresh ideas, some fresh energy, and, some guys that I think are going to be really, really good here. And then obviously we can talk about the strength spot.
Yeah, I was going to say we've got to start getting into wrap-up mode because you've got to get to the airport. We've got a meeting coming up as well. But Matt Aldrid was such a big part of what you've done here over the last few years. And as I told you before we started, people continue to come after your people, which means that you're doing something right. And he ends up at Michigan, which obviously how are you going to turn that down going to Power 5 school, Big Ten? I'm sure it came with a hefty pay raise, which is great for him, but it also left you with another spot to fill and an important spot with the way you do things.
Yeah, I mean, 3 of the 4 staff changes, Dan, doubled their income.
Yeah.
Literally doubled their income. And so, and same thing with Matt. I mean, it's a situation where, it was for him and his part of his career, he felt like it was something he had to do. And, so when that happens, I mean, he's been with me for 6 years. And, we had some turnover in the first year or 2 of our staff, but we've really, for the most part, we've had almost the same staff for 5 years now. And minus Jimmy getting the Anderson job and bringing in Chad, and then some other, Jordan leaving here and going to Navy. We've had a lot of continuity, and Matt's been a friend. Matt's been a brother. We brought Matt in, assistant from Florida, and he walked in here with his fat tool, showed me how to scrape guys, and I'll never forget it. He was young, and he was basically an intern at Florida, and I knew he was green, but I knew he was smart, and he walks in with his case, and we were interviewing 3 people, and he said, you got to see this. And he brought in one of our players, and he said, hey, do a pull-up. The guy starts to do a pull-up, and, he has a certain angle of pull on it. And I think he knocked out about 12 of them. He said, hey, man, jump up on this table. And he took this thing out, looked like a plastic knife, put this cream on this guy, and he started scraping him. And he did both arms, and he said, all right, jump on that thing again. And the guy knocks out 15 of them. I was like, what is this? And at that moment, it was like, you know what? I don't know what that is, and I don't know what the heck he just did. But the guts to come in here and do that, and the intelligence and the care to look for, like, unique ways, like, I was sold. And he knows this. I'm not saying anything he doesn't know at this point. The staff wanted me to hire another guy. But I knew he wanted knowledge, and I knew he wanted to find improvement. And for 6 years, that's what he did. He came in here, and he tried to find ways to make this place better. He tried to find new ideas to get our guys stronger, faster, better. And you know what? Like, he took care of me, too. I mean, I've thought about that a bunch of times. I mean, he would tell me, like, when I needed to slow down or, when I needed to make sure that I was taking care of myself better. And, there's a certain level of accountability that I appreciated with him. And so, he just had his firstborn, and, their family's growing. He got married a couple years ago, and obviously, I was in that position at one point, at Charleston Southern. That's when I came here. We wanted to have more kids and expand the family. And so he's off to Michigan. I'm good friends with Dusty. We all know each other. Dusty was an assistant at Florida when Matt was at Florida. Another lesson in life, like, you just never know who's watching, right? Like, Matt was literally like an intern in the weight room. Dusty was an assistant at Florida, okay? Well, now Matt's a head basketball strength coach in the Big Ten, and Dusty's a head coach in the Big Ten, and they're working together. And so, fortunately, because of, the commitment and the support and our stakeholders really investing in that position, we were in a position to go get somebody really good as well. And so the same person that I utilized to help me find Matt 6 years ago, Preston Green, was somebody I leaned on heavily in this process. He's one of the best strength coaches in the country, if not the best. And, he basically was kind of, I don't know that world. So I said, hey, give me some names. He called me back and he said, hey, these are 3 guys I think you can get. And, I wasn't surprised, but I was like, okay, we're going to get somebody really good if he's telling me the truth. And so we set up Zooms with all of them and went through it and realized quickly they were all 3 exceptional. And but we ended up going with John and Johnny Rebay. He comes from UAB, and he's been the basketball strength coach there the last 4 years, and they've been to the tournament. And then before that, he was at Louisiana for 3 years. So he's had his own room for 7 years, which I thought was important, right? I didn't want to go backwards there. I wanted to find some experience that they could come in and have their own room. Ironically enough, he came from Florida as well, under Preston, where Matt was. They actually lived in the same apartment. Basically when John left, Matt moved in, and now John's coming here to work. And so, wife Angela and daughter Selena, they were actually here last week, and looking for houses and looking to get situated. But he'll start officially next week. And we had our first Zoom yesterday at 4:00. We were all scattered. But it was the first time we saw everybody on the screen and were able to have a good staff meeting. So a lot of new faces, a lot of new energy. But, man, you know what? A lot of the same faces, too. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing I've had to remind people. Let's not forget, to have 8 returners still puts us probably in the top 10, 15% in college basketball and how many returners we have back. And still having quality assistants stay, having some guys get some opportunities they couldn't turn down. But we're excited to get it all together and take a little break here in the next couple weeks, but then be ready to roll this summer.
Can't let you go without asking your thoughts, 60 seconds or so, on Stephen Kroon going into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, Stephen Kroon. Man, I still remember his recruitment like it was yesterday. Newton County. Went and watched him play, would drive back and forth here to Atlanta, and man, he was fast. He was athletic. You knew there were some things he was going to have to continue to get better at, but he was so dynamic, and ended up being a battle between us and Northeastern at the end. And he called and he committed here in the spring, and Jeff Jackson was still the coach here, and I still remember exactly where I was when he called and committed. And bless his heart, we had to start him his freshman year. We were just talking about that the other day, and the lessons he had to learn, and then he had to go through a coaching change. But one thing you say about Stephen is Stephen was loyal to Furman, and Stephen could have left right when Jeff got let go. He decided to stay here and play for Nico, somebody that didn't necessarily recruit him, but he saw the vision. And we weren't. I mean, we won like 8 games that first year when Nico was here. He could have left then, right? And then we won a few more games, his junior year, but not many. But then that's when we made the run to the tournament,
right?
And Stephen was a huge part of that, and just really putting ourselves in position where we were a couple possessions away from going to the NCAA tournament, and then his last year, that's when we kind of made a bigger jump in terms of in the win column, and so he was really, when you look back at it, he was a really important piece. Basically in the transition, right? Mm-hmm. And enduring 2 really, really hard seasons, Jeff's last season and Nico's first season, but then staying with it, and we'll all never forget the baseline dunk at Citadel.
And, as a freshman.
Yeah, I mean, it just that was a play you'll never forget. But we're excited about that, and it was definitely worthy. I mean, you're talking about a guy that was player of the year in the league, and somebody that was a huge piece in getting this program where it was today, and you never want to forget your roots.
Well, listen, I know our fans have been waiting on an update that we promised them last month. Thank you for your time.
One thing, Dan, I don't want to cut you off. I do feel like before we stop, I feel like I touched on Charles and a couple of them a lot. Mm-hmm. Just real quick on a couple of those guys. Yeah. Nick Anderson. Nick is somebody, fun fact, played for Butch Estes at Barry. Mm-hmm. So he's been well coached, big time shooter, can make shots off of screens. Really a shooter we haven't had in terms of the type since Conley. somebody that can really fly around and torque his body and change direction, fly off of staggers, fly off of pins. Like we talked about earlier, we got to get this three-point shooting percentage up. So he'll have 1 year, and we're really excited about him. Jalen Sullinger, we talked about a little bit, just the Rhett connection, Tyrese connection, dynamic guard. I mean, just you're talking about somebody that's been all league already at this level and has also played in the NCAA tournament already at this level. And, really, to be honest with you, I mean, to get that volume of scoring was huge for us.
Mm-hmm.
And he's somebody that, he's going to be a very good piece with PJ. And PJ's made a huge jump this spring, massive jump, and doesn't surprise me. I mean, just, with what he's about and how tough he is and how much he cares, he's been phenomenal this spring. So really to be able to have two guards back there that can really shoot it, can really take care of it, can really play off the ball, can really play with good tempo. We're excited about that. Tom House, I referenced him because we recruited him in high school, 6'6", and can shoot the cover off the ball. And somebody that we thought we had in the high school process. Georgia, Florida State ended up offering late in his process. He went to Florida State. But, man, they're huge winner at Centerville High School there in Ohio. His dad, Jeff, mom, Ann, great people. It was neat to see that full circle. And he's somebody, again, going to be able to knock a ton of shots down for us. And then Mason, I wanted to sign one high school player, if not two, because that's really, I mean, you get 4 years with him. And I know people are saying, why would you do that in today's time? But that's still what we're going to be about. And we're going to sign, in this next class, we're going to sign multiple high school players. But Mason, I mean, 6'8", and can absolutely shoot the ball and knows how to play, knows how to cut, just about the right things, and really is going to be his intelligence and how he can see the game. I think he's going to be able to pick our concepts up quick. So, I've told the staff, after all this went down, I said, hey, we're all excited about this. And then I started writing up all the names on the board. And I said, well, now the fun starts. We got to figure it out. And because it's really hard to say, like, what's it going to be? Like you got all these players that we're excited about, but then we got to put it together. And, we're going to have to try to make some of those decisions earlier, and I think this summer is going to be very, very competitive. And I think it's going to be one that's intentional to get our culture right and to make sure that we make this about Furman and make this about the mission. But, that's a little bit. I know we talked about Charles a lot, but that's a little bit about all five of them.
I was just because we've gone so long, I was trying to be respectful of your time. So, but I appreciate you circling back to that. And look, as we close it out, you know this better than anybody. Competition in practice is not a bad thing.
Iron sharpens iron.
There you go.
We've got great pieces. We're gonna make some adjustments a little bit in terms of style. Like I alluded to, we're gonna do a little bit more double big. We're gonna get Garrett a little bit more toward the 4, and be able to play a little bit bigger. But Charles and Cooper, I mean, that's going to be two really, really good players at the 5. And, now you got basically 3 4s there with Garrett, Tyrese, and Davis. And, so it's going to be very competitive there. And then you look at the perimeter, we've got some really, really good pieces. I mean, we hadn't even talked about Ben Vanderwall. I mean, the type of spring he had. He's been working on his shot a ton and just leading great. And, it's just all of them. I mean, Edrin Brunson, I mean, people have no clue, like his redshirt year, and Tommy's been working hard and, just going down the line. But we got to put this thing together, and we're going to have an eager group. And we can't wait to get started.
Like I said, no shortage of enthusiasm out of head basketball coach Bob Richey. As always, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We will talk to you again soon. Thank you for your attention, and we'll see you again next time. For Coach Richey and all of us at Furman, I'm Dan Scott. God bless you, and so long, everybody.